Welcome to the webinar, Protecting California Students, Supporting Immigrant and LGBTQ plus Youth During Challenging Times. My name is Marina Quintanilla. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am the Advocacy and Strategic Partnerships Manager with the California School-Based Health Alliance. So welcome. And then in terms of some housekeeping items, to respect the privacy of all participants, we do not allow AI note takers in our presentations. We will be recording this webinar and we'll share a link with the video and the presentation slides in a few days. Ask questions in the Q&A tab or in the group chat, and we'll get to them towards the end of the webinar. We also have some webinar agreements that everyone saw in the registration page, and we want to make sure that you take a look at them one more time. So here they are. Be present and ready to learn, communicate respectfully, contribute to a learning environment that strengthens our advocacy and allyship with youth. And if you didn't know who we are, the California School-Based Health Alliance is a statewide nonprofit organization dedicated to improving the health and academic success of children and young people by advancing health services in schools. Our work is based on two basic concepts, and that's that healthcare should be accessible where kids are, and that's at schools, and schools should have the services needed to ensure that poor health is not a barrier to learning. And we do this through many ways, one of which is capacity building. We also provide lots of technical assistance. And like today, we're doing workshops and our webinar for today. And if you click on the link in the group chat where you can find the recording of this presentation, slides, and a bunch of free resources on our website. And then if your organization is not a member yet, please consider it. You get different perks like the conference registration discounts and technical assistance that is tailored to your organizational needs. You can scan the QR code or click on the link in the group chat. The link will be shared there. Our objectives for today, by the end of this webinar, at least 80% of participants will be able to identify two current legal or policy challenges impacting immigrant and LGBTQ plus youth, and also describe two practical strategies that can be implemented within your school communities to promote inclusivity and student well-being. And now I have the honor to introduce our amazing lineup of panelists. Today's webinar will focus on how we can protect students during this political climate. There are many harmful policies that are targeting vulnerable communities across the country, and California schools play a critical role in remaining safe, inclusive spaces for all students, especially immigrant and LGBTQ plus youth. So I'll get us started with our first person, and that is Ana Mendoza. Her pronouns are she, her, and she is the Education Equity Project Director and Senior Staff Attorney at the ACLU Foundation of Southern California, where she leads statewide legal and policy initiatives to protect the rights of K-12 students. Her work focuses on ensuring California's public schools remain safe, inclusive spaces for immigrant, LGBTQ+, and other historically marginalized youth. Janis Price is a coordinator of family and community engagement in the Orange County Department of Education in Southern California. She is passionate about leading, learning, and serving. She has a teaching credential, master's in education, and is in a preliminary administrative credential program. A former middle school health teacher, she now connects schools with community partners to support families from diapers to diplomas. She leads efforts to strengthen tiered family engagement, fostering trust by building capacity and relationships. And our third presenter is Veejay Atilano. He, him, Sia pronouns, is an associate Program Director with Equality California. Veejay brings numerous years of experience working in the nonprofit sector and higher education institutions. As an alumnus of San Francisco State University, he received his BA in Asian American Studies and taught ethnic studies to eighth grade students through an organization called Panay Educational Partnerships. He later worked at organizations such as APAIT and OCAPICA, doing health education and college access work before pursuing his master's in higher education at Cal State Fullerton. During this time at higher education, Veejay provided leadership and oversight in various student affairs that include campus activities, dual enrollment, outreach, and student support services. So we are very excited for our presenters, and I won't take any more time. I will pass it on to our first presenter, which will be Veejay.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. So once again, my name is Veejay Atilano. I use he, him, and short pronouns, and I work at Equality California. We can go to the next slide. So just a disclaimer. So a lot of the stuff here that I will be presenting on is for educational purposes. So if you're looking for any like legal advice, I encourage you all to seek legal advice from legal experts as it relates to any possible violation of your rights or the rights of your students. Next slide. Awesome. So just to give you a little overview, so a lot of my presentation is going to talk about LGBTQ plus student rights under attack within but to kind of get a hang of things, I kind of wanted to start off with what is an executive order. When a lot of the executive orders by this administration was started coming out earlier this year, we were getting a lot of these questions from a lot of our school partners that we work with. Like, is this something that we should be implementing the next day and things like that? But I think it's really important to really understand what is an executive order. So just to think about it, so an executive order really is a written directive signed by the president that orders the government to take specific actions, right? So it does not override any federal laws or statutes. There's a whole process for that, and only Congress or Supreme Court can do that, right? So whenever folks are it's really important to understand that executive orders does not immediately change any federal regulation. There is a process for that as well. So people need to understand also that there's also state laws that are in place for the protection of our LGBTQ plus students as well. So those are there for that reason alone, right? And many of these executive orders are already being challenged within the court system as well. So this is going to be an ongoing thing that you're going to see moving forward. Is that a lot of these, when we see more executive orders come out, it's going to be challenged within the court system as well. Next slide, please. So the two things I wanted to point out really are two executive orders that will directly impact a lot of LGBTQ plus students, and we've seen that already happen throughout the year. The main one is the Anti-Transgender Sports Ban Executive Order. So this is Executive Order 14201, also known as Keeping Men Out of Women's Sport. So a lot of these things, we've seen this in the news. We've seen a lot of that happen, and particularly we've seen stuff happen within different school districts about students being bullied for playing sports and things like that. The weaponization of Title IX and things like that as well, right? But it's really important to know, like, even though there was a lot of traction in the beginning of the year, it kind of has slowed down a little bit. And I think also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think CIF posted a statement in support of allowing students be part of be part of play the sports they want to play based on their gender identity and things like that as well. So a lot of these things are being challenged, but as the year goes on, it's really important to be just aware of like what executive orders are in place to be able to support your students that way, but also keep up to date with what's going on with the news and things like that as well, right? Can we go to the next slide, Marina? Awesome. Yeah. So the other executive order that I wanted to point out is the Anti-Transgender Education Executive Order, which is EO 14190, which is ending racial indoctrination in K-12 schools. So a lot of this really does affect a lot of LGBTQ plus students, right? So depending on how your student identifies and things like that, this one is calls on like federal agencies to withhold any federal funding from K to 12 schools that support transgender students, including by using their chosen names and pronouns and teaching topics related to gender identity. So I'll talk about it later, but I'll talk also about the Safety Act as it relates to this too as well later down the line. It also directs the Attorney General to take action against K-12 teachers and school officials who violate the executive order by affirming a transgender student's identity. But then there's also California laws protecting transgender students remain unchanged. So one of these, so I really want to point out like the Safety Act that was implemented earlier this year, because there is a section on there that also talks about educator rights as well, right? So Next slide. So in terms of what California is doing, so I picked really five different areas when thinking about the different work our state legislation is working on. So in particular, the reason why I picked these five areas is because it will impact LGBTQ plus, not just LGBTQ plus students, but also the community as well. So I think one of the main things I just wanted to show people is what is it our California legislation doing in response to a lot of these executive orders. And I think since I've been gone, I think seven of the nine bills that we supported have passed. So some of these have passed. I just don't remember what the seven are at on the top of my head. But I can talk over about. So one of the things a lot of our like the first one doing is as it relates to identification documents. So we have AB 1084 by Rick Zuber and then SB 59. So a lot of these really is talking about ensuring that, swift access to accurate state IDs without necessary delays or barriers, but also ensuring that, name or gender changes remain confidential, reducing the risk that transgender and non-binary Californians will be outed or exposed to harm. And we've been seeing a lot of these like forced outing policies within school district, which causes a lot of harm for students and their families as well, right? So we've been noticing a lot of that too. In regards to healthcare, we have AB 82 and SB 497, along with AB 715. So the first two really handles talks about the sensitive medical records remain confidential, and California healthcare providers cannot be used as tools for out-of-state investigation or legal action. And then 715 really talks about safeguarding attorneys from disciplinary action when it provides legal services to patients, medical providers, and others seeking lawful healthcare services within California. And then another thing is housing and homelessness, so AB 678. This one, so a lot of LGBTQ plus students, are, fall under like being the homeless population and things like that. So we want to ensure that within state-funded homelessness programs provide safe and inclusive housing for LGBT plus people, especially transgender people as well. Next slide. And then two more things. So one, as it relates to safe and supportive schools. So with a lot of the existing laws aimed at supporting LGBTQ plus students, not yet being fully implemented across the state. And then with the administration seeking to proactively discriminate against vulnerable youth, AB 908 ensures that local school districts uphold their obligations to create a safe learning environment for LGBTQ plus students. And then one thing I also want to add on is for workplace protections. It's kind of giving that many LGBTQ plus adults, especially older people, do not have close ties with biological relatives due to family rejection or circumstances. SB 590 ensures that qualifying workers can receive paid family leave benefits to care for a member of their chosen or extended family. So these are just some of the things to be aware of. So some of these have been passed. But these are some things these are just good to know in case like you're wondering what are we doing here in California as it relates to a lot of these executive orders. We're ensuring that we're still protecting a lot of our LGBTQ plus students, not just within schools, but within our communities as well. The next slide. All right, so a couple things. So I know like a lot of folks are coming from different levels, right? So some of us are in the classroom, some of us don't work in the classroom, but we still work within schools, or maybe some of us are just are beyond the classroom as well. Right? So a couple things I share with a lot of our partners, what you could do or taking action today really is a couple of things, right? So if you're in the classroom, keep using those inclusive curriculum materials, keep supporting ethnic studies and things like that. Be able to support a lot of our GSAs and safe spaces. So those are very critical, especially at this time. We need to ensure that our students are able to find these spaces, but also how do we also ensure that there's protection around that as well. So not being to, just be mindful of like how you post like meeting times and things like that, or information about where to meet, because that also protects a lot of our students' information and identities. And then one thing I used to do as a teacher was I encourage a lot of student-led advocacy projects. I think this is a good way to really teach students about how to build skills as it relates to advocacy. So doing like youth participatory action research project, things like that really does help with student advocacy and whatnot. So if you're at the school level, right, there's a couple things as well that you could do. So one of it is ensuring that policies are being implemented and not just written, and being able to clearly understand what that policy actually says, right? So how do you speak to your leaders and ensure that the policy is being implemented, and what does this look like day to day in your operation at the school site and things like that as well. I would also advocate for professional development training. I think that is so important, especially given at this time, right? So yeah, so as teachers, educators, whatever level you're at, it's always important to have this type of training. And if your school site or district provides that training, please go seek those training as well because they're very helpful at this time. So beyond the school things, I would encourage you all to maybe engage with this with district policy decision making through a lot of school board meetings. So we've seen a lot of things happen at school board meetings regarding like forced outing policies and things like that. And we really do need a lot of community support in these spaces so that they can hear what the community wants and needs. And then another thing too is connecting with advocacy groups for additional tools and support. So I'm going to share with you later on a couple more tools and resources to use to help you with your work as well. Next slide. Awesome. So at Equality California, one of the tools that we do have is our Safety Supported Schools report card. So we have published about three of these report cards in 2019, 2022, and 2024, and we're getting ready for our 2026 report cards. So those report cards are accessible through our website, so schools.eqca.org. From our most recent report card in 2024, you will see key findings from about 146 unified school districts who responded to our survey. So it's broken down by region, district tribes, and all of that stuff, along with recommendations. And you can also see the full survey questionnaire that we use for that edition. Next slide. And then another thing that we're doing right now is we have released our 2025-2026 Save and Support Schools survey. So this survey is what is going to inform our report card for 2026. So just to give you a little bit more of information on this report card and how to be part of it. So we reached out to 345 unified school districts. So for our report card, it's only 40 unified school districts at the moment, given our capacity. So if you're wondering like who has received the survey, all the superintendents should have gotten an email from us along with one additional staff. So the survey alone cannot be completed, so you have to be a district staff or work within the schools to be able to complete that survey. So you have to get authorization from the superintendent to get that completed. And then if you want your district to be part of that report card, I would reach out to your administration to see if who got the email because the email has a personalized link for each district for them to complete that survey. And then if you have any questions about the survey, you can always reach out to me. I'll leave my contact information as well, so we can let you know who we reached out to if there's maybe other folks that we need to reach out as well. And then next slide. And just a couple more resources I wanted to share. So we have a lot, you'll probably get a lot more resources in the next couple of presentations. So divided by different legal, wellness, community support, instruction, and then local support as well. So these are just some resources for you all to utilize in your work. I highly encourage you to take the PRISM training and whatnot. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Veejay. Now we will have Anna.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Ana Mendoza. I am the Education Equity Director at the ACLU of Southern California. And so today, in today's 20-minute session, I am going to condense what is usually a 2-hour workshop to give you a rapid overview of how immigration enforcement intersects with school safety and what legal protections exist for students and families in California. Next slide, please. So the information that I'm sharing today is for educational purposes only. It is not legal advice. Every person's situation is different. So if your school or if a family is facing a specific legal issue, they should consult a qualified attorney. Also, just want to note that laws and policies evolve constantly. So it's important to consult an attorney for the most up-to-date information that applies to your situation. Next slide, please. And so today we have a lot to cover, but in part we're going to cover how the school to prison deportation pipeline works, what immigration enforcement can look like in schools, what legal protections apply to students and families, and what steps educators can take to keep schools safe and welcoming for all students. Next slide, please. So let's start by what we mean by the school to prison deportation pipeline. I'm sure that a lot of you have already heard this term in your work, but it's very relevant when it comes to protecting all students, in particular students who might be facing law enforcement issues in their communities. So school discipline practices like zero tolerance policies or calling police for minor misbehavior can accidentally or sometimes purposefully funnel students, especially Black, Brown, and immigrant students, out of schools and into criminal or immigration systems. So some examples include police arresting students on campus, including for things that were once handled by a counselor or a principal, can lead to unintended consequences that can jeopardize a student's immigration matter. Because unfortunately, some criminal legal histories are part of an immigration officer's review when a person tries to regularize their immigration status. Also, sharing information with law enforcement can inadvertently subject students to unintended consequences, including having their information inadvertently shared with federal agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the enforcement arm of the Department of Homeland Security. And these practices harm all students, but especially those students with undocumented family members or who belong to over-policed communities. Next slide, please. So what does immigration enforcement look like in schools? And so what we've seen during the first Trump administration and now in the second administration immigration enforcement can touch a school community in many ways. It is possible that ICE or other agents from Homeland Security investigations or other Department of Homeland Security departments may show up to a school to question a student or an employee. We saw those attempts earlier this year in LA Unified. ICE may park near a school during drop-off or pickup hours or in the community at large. We saw this during the first Trump administration in the east side of Los Angeles. And schools may unknowingly share student data with ICE via law enforcement systems. So sometimes law enforcement input information into a particular database, and sometimes those databases are accessible by other agencies, not just the local agents. This creates a climate of fear. Some students can stop showing up, parents may avoid school events, educators may not know what their rights or responsibilities are. To support student success and well-being, though, schools have to remain sanctuaries for learning, not sites of surveillance or policing or fear. Next slide, please. So we can take courage in knowing that in California, public school students have strong legal protections. They have the right to an education. This is under not only the US Constitution, but importantly, under the California Constitution. We are a state in which there's a constitutional guarantee to education that is not guaranteed by the US Constitution, and that is regardless of your immigration status. Students have a right to privacy, so schools can't release information to any law enforcement agency, including ICE, without a court order, a judicial subpoena, or true emergency, and meeting other protections and safeguards. Students have the right to be free from discrimination and harassment, so schools have to act if they're bullied for their race, language, or immigration status. And parents have the right to be notified if law enforcement removes a student from their school, regardless of whether that law enforcement officer is local or federal. Next slide, please. In California, there are specific protections that have been enacted in recent years to protect immigrant students and immigrant communities at large in our state. So AB 699 was a sanctuary schools bill passed in 2017, which prohibits schools from collecting status related to, from collecting information related to a person's immigration status. It also requires outreach to all emergency contacts if a parent is detained or deported or otherwise unavailable, which is important because we know that when parents are detained, we don't want students to automatically be entered into foster care situations without knowing what's happening. It also mandates training and policy adoption by every California school district, charter school, and county office of education, aligned with the California Attorney General guidance. There's also the California Values Act implemented or created by SB 54, which prevents local law enforcement, including school police, from participating in federal immigration enforcement unless required by law. And then this year, AB 49 was signed by the governor just last month. And it just clarifies what's in the Attorney General's guidance. It prohibits school employees from letting ICE into schools without legal documentation, and it requires school employees to request identification and notify the designated point person if there's attempted immigration enforcement at a school site. Um, Policies must be updated to explicitly name these items by March 2026. It's an important deadline for schools. Next slide, please. So a school, as we mentioned earlier, every school district, charter school, and county office of education must have protective policies in place. So in addition to those policies, how can schools operationalize some of the legal and policy protections available to limit harmful contact with law enforcement, including immigration enforcement? So schools have a variety of different options available, and protecting student data is a core part of that work. Educators and administrators can encourage families to opt out of directory information sharing. They can not they can ensure that they're not collecting or storing information about immigration status or social security numbers. That means also that counselors shouldn't have a roster of undocumented students, for example. And they should also avoid working with vendors who share data with law enforcement. Schools should also check if they use online monitoring tools and eliminate surveillance technology. If your school uses this technology, then caution students to not write about immigration issues on school devices or platforms out of an abundance of caution. A school cannot turn over information that it does not have access to or documentation that it doesn't have. So the best way to not have to deal with this issue is to just not collect this information in the first place. Next slide, please. Schools also have an obligation to protect against unreasonable searches and seizures. And so schools should require warrants or court orders before giving access to law enforcement to school sites, to students, employees, or records. They need to have clear written policies, and this is required by law. And we'll go into those policies in the next slide. They also must train all staff on how to respond to law enforcement questions about students. This is particularly important for front office staff or anyone who manages visitors at the school site. And there also needs to be a designated and trained point person to handle all law enforcement requests. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, every school district, charter school, and county office of education is required to have policies in place to protect students from law enforcement, in particular immigration enforcement. And so as a result of AB 699, the California Attorney General published this resource promoting a safe and secure learning environment for all, guidance and model policies to assist California's K-12 schools in responding to immigration issues. The guidance outlines 5 core areas where California public schools are required to have protected policies and practices in place, especially when it comes to supporting immigrant students and families. These requirements were originally issued in 2018 and recently updated in 2024. And as I mentioned earlier, the AG is now required to update them again by December 2026. Excuse me, December 2025, so in a few months. These are just not best practices, they're mandatory under California law for all public schools. The purpose of adopting these policies is to ensure that schools are safe and welcoming environments for all students, regardless of immigration status or family background. So let's walk through each of the 5 areas. So the first is gathering and handling student and family information. So schools cannot ask about, collect, or record anything related to an immigration status. This is a key protection that helps reduce the risk of harmful data being shared, even unintentionally. 2, sharing student and family information. Schools must safeguard student data and only disclose information to immigration enforcement agents when legally required. Those are very limited circumstances. So for example, with a valid court order or judicial warrant. 3, responding to requests for access to school grounds. If immigration agents come to class, or if any law enforcement officer comes to school grounds for an immigration enforcement related purpose, school staff must follow specific protocols to verify their authority and protect students and their information. This includes designating a trained staff person to handle such situations. 4, responding to the detention or deportation of a student's family member. If a student's parent or guardian is detained or deported, schools must act swiftly, contacting emergency contacts, ensuring the child is not left alone or without care, and providing trauma-informed support. And 5, responding to hate crimes or bullying related to national origin or ethnicity. Schools must take immediate and meaningful action if a student is harassed or bullied due to their real or perceived immigration status, language, religion, or ethnicity. You'll notice the stars on these slides. Those indicate that staff training is required in those areas. This means that schools are not just expected to have policies, but to make sure all relevant staff know how to implement them. Ultimately, these protections are about making sure that no student is afraid to come to school and that schools remain places of trust, learning, and community. Next slide, please. So, knowing kind of what policies are, what the 5 core areas are that every California school must have in terms of policies, how do we handle student information? Or how do we handle a situation where if a family member is detained or student is harassed? We know that having policies on paper isn't enough. What really matters is how those protections are brought to life on our campuses, in classrooms, counseling offices, and school board meetings. So let's look at some practical strategies to promote inclusivity and wellness for immigrant and other marginalized students. So here are a few ways that schools and educators can take action to make these protections real. So first, I hear this from educators all the time, is that they don't know how to find their school board policies on these issues. That's the first step, is to locate them. So you can ask your district leadership or legal team for copies of your school or school district's updated policies, and know that the Attorney General publishes the guidance online too. 2, you can advocate at the district level and encourage your district or school to adopt policies that actively protect all students, such as limiting law enforcement presence on campus and ensuring families feel safe participating in school life. Under AB 699, families must receive information about their child's right to a free public education, regardless of their immigration status or religious belief. So remember, you can't single out families based on their actual or perceived immigration status. So it's best to provide this information to all students so that no one feels like they're being targeted or singled out, because that can be viewed potentially as discrimination depending on the circumstances. Also, it's important to know what your school supports are when parents have been detained or deported. In some cases, the student may qualify for services under the McKinney-Vento Act if the student becomes unhoused or has to otherwise crash on a relative's couch. Your school may also have a list of resources that they want to share with a family impacted by detention or deportation, including rapid response network information. And then 5, it's important also to familiarize yourself with trauma-informed and mental health practices that help students feel safe and supported. There's a few links in the slide, which you'll be able to get after the presentation. So these are a few, but they're small but powerful actions. And by understanding these district policies, sharing accurate information, and building supportive environments, educators can help reduce fear and ensure that students feel safe, seen, and protected at school. Next slide, please. Thanks. So in the event, if you want to prepare for encounters with law enforcement on your campus, it's important to know your rights and practice what to say if you're approached by law enforcement. Staff may be asked to share information or grant access, but remember, there are laws and probably school policies that govern what you can and cannot disclose or do. Make sure that you're familiar with those rules. Second, save key emergency contact numbers in your phone and keep them somewhere accessible, like your desk or staff room, or memorize them. I usually encourage family members to memorize at least 2 of these emergency numbers. So you should know who your local education agency administrator or designated point person is. This is the person who should handle and respond to reports of immigration enforcement activity on or around school campus. And if you're not sure who that is, just ask your principal or school administrator. Um, Having the information can help you stay ready, stay calm, and then be sure to follow the legal protocols. Next slide, please. Great. So now that we've talked about proactive steps that educators and school staff can take, like identifying the right contacts and knowing what the emergency plans are for your school, let's talk a little bit about what to do if law enforcement, including immigration agents, show up near or around your campus. It's critical to understand how to conduct yourself during an encounter with law enforcement, and oftentimes even myself, it's helpful to practice ahead of time. So let's walk through a few key actions you can and you can take in the moment. So first, do remain calm. Your response and tone can influence how students, families, and law enforcement react. Stay composed and lead by example. Do ask if you're free to go. If you're approached or questioned by law enforcement, you can ask, am I free to leave? And if they say no, follow up with, am I under arrest? Knowing your status helps you assess your rights and responsibilities in that moment. Do exercise your right to remain silent. You're not required to answer questions beyond what is required by school policy. So you can say, I want to remain silent and continue to calmly decline to answer further. Do ask why you're being questioned. So as a school employee, you should know whether the questioning is related to a school safety issue or immigration enforcement, and whether the officer has a valid judicial warrant. If you're being questioned in your personal capacity or feel uncertain, you can say, I want to talk to a lawyer. And if it's a school-related issue, just follow your district or your school's legal protocols. Most schools should have schools, because of the AG guidance, should have a designated person to handle those type of requests. And if you yourself are over 18, not a US citizen, and an immigration agent asks to see your papers, you should be cautious about what you do in that moment. Be sure to prepare ahead of time by talking to an immigration attorney. Next slide, please. I know this was a lot to cover in just 20 minutes, and we do have a list of resources for folks to help you kind of get a refresher on some of the content that I provided today and to go a bit deeper. There's also resources that you can print out, share with other educators, counselors, or nurses, give to teachers, and that you can share with families. And then we also at our office have the ICE Not Welcome campaign. So if you'd like posters or door hangers with those graphics from that campaign, you can order them from our organization and we can have those sent to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anna. Just a quick reminder for folks that if you do have questions, please include them in the chat or in the Q&A tab so that we can address them after our third presenter. And so with that, I will pass it on to Janis.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this afternoon where we're sharing a lot of information. I am really grateful for Veejay sharing earlier, Anna sharing about a lot of great supports that are available and what schools could do and what not to do as well. So I get to be the caboose and finish up this presentation for you and sharing what's happening within schools. How are we talking to staff? How are we training? How are we connecting and partnering with our families and our communities so that they do feel like the school is a safe and inclusive environment to the best of our ability, knowing everything that we've got happening in our families. So what I'm going to take you through is an example of how we talk about this with our school staff, how we talk about being an ally for both our immigrant families and students, LGBTQ plus, our children that might be learning English, whatever these ideas are of meeting our families where they're at. We really help our teachers and staff feel like do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. It's a saying I use with our teacher trainings and within our students that help them really feel like we do have a very strong positive influence, but let's use it to the best of our ability that is going to bring the best opportunities for our children. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about that. Just to share my role within the County Office of Education, I'd like to share that with you because I was watching as the participants were signing in today that many of you are within schools. And so a County Office of Ed person like me would be the in between the state and your school district. A County Office of Ed person, special to California, not all states have County Office of Eds, but we need to be that middle person between the state and the laws and ed code and legislation to the implementation that happens at a school district. So I'm encouraging you to find your County Office of Ed family and community engagement staff that could support you if you're wishing your schools had more supports, or maybe you're a community partner and wanting to know how to partner with your schools. Please visit your County Office of Ed. And if you need names or connections there, I can help you with that as well. So as a County Office of Ed staff, we're working alongside of grants and school initiatives like the Community School Initiative that's mentioned here. When we go to the next slide, I'd really like to share when we're talking about our students in creating a safe and inclusive environment. This is where schools are really doing something new, right? We're considering how important it is to look at the whole child beyond academics and how much a school needs to be paying attention to. What are the mental health needs of our kids? How is nutrition happening? It's affecting whatever they might be going through, whether the LGBTQ, the immigration, how is this affecting attendance? Because oftentimes we go straight to the chronic absentee worry and paying and looking at the end results, but there is now starting to be this prevention light of why are our students being absent? And maybe it's the environment that we could look at changing to make it more inclusive for our school. So we're talking about that. We're looking at expanded learning programs that helps a student before school and after school to really be the door to door. If you've heard, like our schools are responsible for our children the minute they leave their front door to the minute they come back to their front door. So our schools are really trying to be looking at all of these things and hold that responsibility. We also to look at how much of our community is aware and comfortable with the school system that we have within the United States. It might be very different than the school system that they came from. So can we look at practices of sharing that more with our families so that they feel more like a partner in it versus being done to them, right? And we're also too looking at how important it is to, like what Anna was saying, we really need to make sure that all of the information we have about our families is updated and kept private and not with the worry that someone would have access to it, like all those things that Anna was saying. The last thing I'd like to bring up that these are considerations of the things that schools are trying to work through as well and need your support with is so much more. Many families are speaking several different languages beyond the ones that we've seen for the past 10 to 15 years in our schools. So we're really trying to work on how can we communicate and meet with our families so that they feel like they're partners, like I was saying, but in a language that they're comfortable with speaking too. So keeping those considerations, let's go into the next slide that really is some examples of what some research is telling us about what we could do as schools and how we're telling our and working with our staff. So this is an excellent article. It's actually from a professor from Southern California, Dr. Cuevas, over at Chapman University. And it's really helping our families our staff learn more about becoming the ally that they need, especially with the immigration worries that we have right now for a lot of our families. So please notice as you look through this, like encouraging families to find out about their rights, encouraging families to be prepared, hosting events, maybe not always at the school site, but in a community center or in partnership with clinics so that it's an environment that our families are comfortable in going to. But also to what is a new thing that schools are trying to do is making safe spaces, whether it be a wellness room, a wellness center where there's actually services provided, or maybe it's a room out within the office space that if someone comes and asks, with all of those proper documentations, that asking to speak to a family and a student, there would be a room separate that the family could go to have those conversations. So it's not out in the public in the front office available for everyone. That's been a new thing that some of our schools are trying to get established as well. But this is a great article, so you're more than welcome to come back to it at a later time. At this time, I'd like to go to the next slide because there are some amazing school districts doing some fantastic things in Southern California that you might be able to share with your districts or your families, because these are a lot of very virtual opportunities and toolkits. So the first one I'd like to highlight is Fullerton, and they actually created a wonderful resource guide last year, but we're finding we're still using it and adding more to it. So in the presentation, you can link up with this resource guide that is the exact examples. How do you have the family preparedness plan? What for staff does a warrant look like that is something that we would have to follow versus one that might not be truthful, where the front office staff would be able to stop that. So this resource guide has been fantastic, and you can follow Fullerton Elementary School District on social media as well, and you'll see that they always communicate in 3 different languages. Fullerton is going to be English, Spanish, and a lot of Korean families that are able to get resources too. And they are doing virtual meetings with families, which is, I really encourage that. They can keep their cameras off. No information is being shared. Nothing is being documented as far as who is registering and attending. It's just a mass Zoom link that's being able to send out to everyone. And then, of course, we have those workshops happening in multiple languages too. Going into the next one that I wanted to highlight is Anaheim Union High School District. Santa Ana. I have 3 that I want to share with you. So number 2 would be Santa Ana. And for those of you that are really concerned and wanting to know how to best train your staff, I'd really encourage you looking at Santa Ana USD as well as Los Angeles County Office of Education for their toolkits that they've made for staff. They have done a fantastic job of training front office staff. They're even working on posters that are being put in the front of the school showing that we're a safe environment. We will not ask for documentation status. We have our policies in place. We will not allow anybody to come onto campus unless they have the proper documentation and things like that. So beyond just the resources available for families, remember Santa Ana when it comes for all of the virtual options and then training for staff. And they have a great video there too. But I need to move on because Anaheim Union High School District is another one that I really would like to highlight in the next screen here. And they have done a fantastic job as well with also to training their staff to know about the legal processes that a family would go through for immigration. So some of their staff have even gone and become notary so that, let's say the family does the family preparedness plan, and because of the new law, AB 49, that was placed, allowing someone besides a parent to be listed as a guardian for a safe place for a student to go to if their family is having some, if a parent is taken into custody. Anaheim Union High School District staff have gone to the extra, I would say, really is extra to take on that, supporting our families with having that notary done so that it becomes a legal document so that our students will not go without being within care. So I really wanted to highlight those 3 districts as well, like I said, as Los Angeles and San Diego County Office of Eds for what they've done. In the next slide that I have for you too is how we've brought this all together. So there's going to be different resources that you can access where we have something for families in English and Spanish coming out of Orange County Department of Ed, as well as the staff resources where it helps with our staff to also to consider the self-care for themselves, that they are going to be experiencing trauma as we're watching and hearing, or working with our students that might be experiencing a lot of trauma and being like fearful. Am I going to go home to having a parent that might not be there? So how can our staff be very well prepared as we're going through this turmoil that we have right now within our families and our community? So I'm leaving these all here because they're just all encompassing. I brought together all of the different counties, state recommendations that were just posted last week from California Department of Ed, as well as resources like the Rapid Response Network, or there is an opportunity for multiple languages to have the red cards, which is something that our families can hold. And it's all families. Everybody has the right to, not answer the door and only speak to you if you have a warrant, and be able to know their rights. So all of those resources are here for you to browse. And they're even in a Google Doc, so that it allows you to kind of take it as if you only put it with your logo and your contact information. We are completely fine with all of that, because we're just brought it all together for our communities to have everything in one house. That's what these documents are for. So have fun browsing them. I see them in the chat as well. But please know, as I'm ending out with my conversations, that the next slide is when we talk to our teachers and really helping them with trauma-informed practices and understanding their biases, believing that our families have a culture of wealth that we want to bring into the schools. We are talking to them about switching, thinking about how are you being knowledgeable about things versus being misinformed, hearing the chisme in the community, sitting around. We say the teacher's lounge is the place that you're going to get all the gossip as well. So where are you being knowledgeable in truth, and where are you cautiously making sure that you're speaking of the truth? We also talk to our families, our staff, about, please think about, are you giving advice, or are you deciding for the family on what to do? Maybe that disclaimer is something that you really like. I'm not a lawyer, but I could share with you these resources, or I can share with you how to connect to the lawyer for legal services, but I'm not someone that could give you that and make those decisions for you. So see how we're trying to really help our staff with, are you treating, also, I'm going to go to the very last one. Are our families, are you treating like humans, like people that, that you want to love and hold on to, and treating them like the human that they are? Or is it a subject of just, here's a resource, go on your own and good luck, and moving on to the next person? We want to build relational trust. We want there to be an opportunity for the families to know that it's not the school knows everything and the families, we want it to be a partnership. So we talk about this a lot in several different professional learning opportunities. If you'd like to know more about those at another time, I can share that with you as well. But as I conclude, I'd really like to highlight one amazing thing that happened last year. And those of you that might be in the area of Santa Ana, I'd like to show you what can happen when you partner with your families and you believe that your schools are there to win for everyone. What happened in Santa Ana last year was a parent group started, led by family liaisons. They started reading a book together called Free and Divided, sharing a story about an undocumented, a mixed status family, and what that life was like for the student as they went through the school system. It was a true story as well, somewhat of a memoir, right? So the families are reading this together as a group at their school. And when reading it, they went to this staff at the school and said, oh my gosh, can I share my story? Because as I'm reading this, it's really making me think about my story, and it's helping me talk about it with my children. And now we're really able to build relationships. So we went from in a book club to parents writing their own stories and sharing, to publishing a book called Our Stories Unite Us. And now Santa Ana parents are traveling authors sharing how when you come together in unity and in relationship and love for one another and hearing each other's stories, we all grow in partnership and really feeling like we're a community together. And I really feel like if schools and families were like this, that we would have a lot better relationships within our families and communities. So I like to leave that note that schools are working really hard. Yes, some could be improving, but also um, that a lot of them are doing really great things. And if you don't know what they're doing, ask, partner with them, find those staff within your district that get to do work like this, and then partner and share. I can maybe bring in this partner that does health and wellness, and if you have access to the families, this is how we could work together. The ideas are endless, but ultimately, I think if we both believe in each other. If families believed in our schools and schools believed in our families, then these issues that we would be going through together would be faceable and we would be able to be united in them. So I wish you the best of luck, and I'll be here with the questions at the end too, but I'm going to hand it back to our moderator so that we can close out the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you to all of our presenters. Thank you so much, Janice, Anna, and Veejay. We have a few minutes for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please include them in the chat. We have received a few, and so as a reminder, we will be sharing slides and the recording and all of the resources that our presenters were talking about in an email in a week or so. So you'll be receiving all of that information. And then I did see that Veejay was able to, sorry, lots of things going on. Veejay was able to answer a question. So there was a question regarding any guidance when a district or county office of ed isn't talking about how to support LGBTQ families. Veejay, would you like to share your response out loud?
Yeah. So I think for this one, because I have a couple of questions to ask, to like why like the district isn't talking about it. But I think there's definitely a couple of ways to look into this. So a couple of things. So one is definitely reach out to your CTA, CFT to get any support on this, just because there might be some educators like who are probably going through a similar situation within their district. So you can probably work together to see what works, what doesn't work. I would also look at it from a professional development opportunity to speak with your leadership about getting additional resources and training. So a lot of times, I'm usually when I used to work in different schools, I'm usually a disruptor, but I think the best way to go about it is usually look at it from a professional development standpoint because if you have resources such as Prism that is mandated now. So that's also another thing. So if your district aren't talking about these resources, then it's probably a larger conversation as to why they're not talking about these resources. But there's requirements for educators to complete like specific trainings and whatnot for LGBTQ plus support and things like that. So this is probably one way to go about that.
Thanks, Vijay. We have another question. So someone asked, our district sent out notice to counselors and admin and registrars that transgender students cannot request a name and gender change in Aries Power School without parental consent. There are options to differentiate between preferred name and gender and legal name and gender within Aries, so the student request would not affect legal docs. Doesn't this violate students' rights? Would anyone like to respond to this one?
So yeah, because looking at the question, and then anyone feel free to jump on if there's anything. Um, but based on what we're reading on the Safety Act, I would say this is a violation of their student rights. But I think I just also need to know more about like what was the memo that was sent out. Was it a policy that was sent out, or was it just a memo or note like that? So yeah, if we can get more information on that, that would be helpful.
And as a reminder, we are not providing legal advice. We're providing information. So, um, yeah, and we have a question here. So, what book was read in the book club? Janice, would you like to share? Oh, there you go. Ephraim Divided was the book. Awesome. Um, any other questions? I don't see any more. Okay, there's another one. If a student's family is facing deportation and they are concerned because they don't have anyone locally who can care for their child and they're unsure what steps to take next, what resources are available to support them? I work at the County Office of Education and the school reached out to me for guidance. We are located in the Bay Area. Are there local or state resources I can direct the school to so that they can help the family and school navigate the situation?
Go ahead, Anna, and then I'm going to pull up the family preparedness plan and AB, right? Is that what you're going to reference?
Yes. So there are several there's a couple of legal nonprofit organizations. So Public Counsel and Vetzedic are among them. They're here in Southern California, but they provide support statewide. Also, Immigrant Resource Legal Center. Those are three nonprofit legal organizations that have created family preparedness materials. And so families can use the tools in those plans to help them make arrangements for someone else to be able to support the child if they want if the parent is being deported but they want their child to remain in the United States. There are different scenarios that they can go through so that it doesn't eliminate parental rights, but rather they're just the rights are retained while the child can remain with an adult who is trusted and can enroll the child in school, take the child to medical appointments, etc. So those are three resources that are really helpful. They're linked in our Immigration and Students Know Your Rights guide on My School, My Rights. I'll also share that I also know that there was a student who themselves was deported. They went to their immigration check-in meeting appointment, excuse me, and this is a tactic that ICE is using where they're calling in folks to go in to check-in meetings with the immigration judge. The government is asking for the court to terminate jurisdiction over that person's matter, and then ICE agents are like outside the court waiting for the person now that the court no longer has jurisdiction over them so that they can detain them. And unfortunately, teenagers are being caught in this strategy along with their parents. So I would also encourage schools to figure out to work with your council and with your leadership to figure out how you can support students who are deported, who particularly those seniors who might have sufficient credits to graduate. There's a lot that you can do with a high school diploma, and we're not their immigration attorney, so we don't know what their prospects are. But I would hope that schools would want to be as supportive and provide as many opportunities in case there's relief in the future for that child or that family to be able to return to the United States.
Thanks, Anna. And then there was someone who asked if you can share the organization's contact information that you just referenced.
I don't have their contact information, but their websites, if you just Google Immigrant Resource Legal Center, irlc.org, I believe is the website. Vetzedic is the other one. And then, oh my gosh, why did I just forget the third that I mentioned earlier? Public Counsel, excuse me. Public Counsel is the other legal nonprofit organization that has this information. I believe Public Counsel and Vetzedic are also doing monthly webinars on family preparedness plans. So if you go to their website or their social media, you'll be able to sign up and attend those workshops. They're very enlightening and very helpful.
That's reminding me too, Anna, there are some great groups that are on social media, and that way the families, like the rapid response networks, that families are watching the social media and being aware of things too. So we can give you a list of ones to follow me too.
Awesome.
Yes. And the ACLU of Southern California, we have a list, we publish a list of the rapid response networks throughout the counties that we serve. The ACLU of Northern California also publishes a list of the rapid response networks in the jurisdictions that they serve. So you can find those online as well.
Perfect. And I don't see any more questions coming through. So I will close this out. So just to let folks know, we have an upcoming CSHA webinar in the next week. It'll be on Certified Wellness Coach webinar. It'll share how wellness coaches provide non-clinical preventative and early intervention services. We can drop the registration link for you all. And then if you have any questions for our presenters or myself, this is our contact information. And again, we will be sharing the slides, the recording, and any follow-up resources via email to everyone that registered. Thank you so much for joining us. And then if you can just fill out the short pop-up survey as you exit the webinar, feel free to reach out to our presenters again. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again to our presenters.